let me just talk about the project to get you started. So you start at this page. Again, in case anybody's lost, you start at samsclass.info. Then you click on the name of the course, CommSC 142, Computer Architecture and Organization. And then you click on Projects, and you see Projects. And the first thing you're going to need is a Linux machine to do your coding on. And I'm using Debian Linux, so you make a Linux virtual machine here, and so the instructions are here to show you how to do it. So on this page, there are various choices. It depends on your hardware. Now, for most people, you run a virtual machine with a hypervisor. It's possible, I suppose, that some of you actually have a Linux desktop. Those are rare, but if you have one, you can probably just use it. And by the way, if you're a fairly advanced Linux user, you probably don't really need to use Debian. If you want to use Red Hat or Ubuntu or something, that's probably fine. But for most students, if you use Debian, they'll follow exactly my instructions. So you install Workstation Player or VMware Fusion. Workstation Player on Windows or VMware Fusion. If you prefer to use VirtualBox or something, that's fine. But anyway, these are usually the easiest for students. Now, if your machine has an Intel processor, which is all Windows machines and all Macs before the M1, so Macs older than about 4 years, then you can just download and import a Linux virtual machine that's already been pre-made. This website here has pre-made Linux machines, and probably the thing to use is the regular installation. They have a VirtualBox one and a VMware one, and all you have to do is download it and unzip it and run it. So you'll have a simulated Linux machine to work on. That's fine if you have Intel hardware. If you have a Mac M1, then you're going to have to download this other program called UTM and emulate an Intel processor. Because for most of the projects, we're learning Intel assembly code, so you can't run it directly on a Mac M1. So there's quite more steps here. You create an emulated AMD 64 machine that imitates the hardware, and then you have to install Debian Linux. And the installation has, it looks like about 15 steps. It's not very hard. Most of it is just telling you that you're using English and an American keyboard and things like that. But anyway, that's the game. You'll end up with Debian installed. Now let me show you a couple useful tricks. I've got an Intel machine here, and I'm going to run this virtual machine, and we'll see sometimes when I'm streaming, my virtual machine gets really... AMD, very good question. AMD is the same as Intel. You have AMD that's completely compatible with Intel, so don't worry about that. AMDs are designed. So I'm opening my Debian 12 headless Linux server. Now you can make, if you get the full version of Linux from that page, you'll get a desktop with a start button and a browser and all that. And that's easier for most beginners. I'm fed up with it. I don't use that anymore. I use a headless server, which has no desktop, to make it faster and more efficient. So my Linux machine, let's see if I can get it to move. My whole machine slows down when I'm streaming to where this may not work. Let's see if it, maybe I can move it. It's streaming. This machine I'm using right now is an Intel machine, and it's about 4 or 5 years old, and it's kind of slow. But here you go. Here's my Debian Linux console. Now you could use it by typing into this page, but that is extremely inefficient. You don't have windows, you don't have scroll bar, you can't adjust the font, and so on. It's not very handy, and the purpose of this, like a server, is just to maintain the machine, basically to start it up. What you want to do is just log in, which is, if you downloaded that pre-made machine, it's a username of Debian and a password of Debian, and then you execute IPA to get your IP address. And you see here my IP address is 172.16.123.130. And then the easiest way to control this, which I highly recommend learning, is to use SSH. And this is how you control cloud machines, which is what everybody's really using these days. You don't run it on your own hardware, you run it in the cloud or remotely, and that's what I'm going to be using later on. So I shove the console aside, and I connect here with just a terminal on a Mac. So I SSH in with Debian is the name of the user at the IP address of my machine, which is 172.16.123.130. I SSH in, then as you give it the password, and now I'm in. Now I have a Linux machine I can work on. So I can go into a directory I made for this course, and I can see some files. I made a bunch of files here as I prepared. Like the first 2/3 of the course, I got it ready, so I made a lot of programs here. So that's the game. Now you're ready. So the first project is just to get your machine ready so you have Debian here. And so you got a flag, and I guess I'll demonstrate it all the way here to be clear. So you go here, and you execute this command uname -a. And when you do it, you see the missing words are Linux Debian. So you're going to need this machine. So even if you watch this video and instead of making a machine, you just put in the flag here, you get points, but you won't be able to do the next project. So I'm really not worried about handing out this flag for free. So that's the flag, the hidden words. So you copy that, and then you put it in here, ED30. You go here and enter flags. And I'm going to use the special name testing that doesn't go on the scoreboard. So I choose, let me make this bigger for the video and everybody. Okay, so I choose the series ED, and this is ED30. And so I put in that flag and submit, and it tells me I'm correct. So there you are. And now I should be on the scoreboard. Now, I'm not on that scoreboard because I used that special name called testing, but I can see it if I go to the administration console and show the testing summary scoreboard. And there you see, you'll look like this. I have some points for turning in a couple projects to test it. All right, so that's what I wanted to show you. You should all start doing projects, and if you finish this, just go on to the next one. Don't wait for a due date or anything. Just charge ahead. If one of these is too difficult or you can't do it, just skip it and go on to the next one. You know, you don't need to do them all. You don't need to do them in order. I'm going to be adding a lot more. There's a ton of extra credit. And, you know, and if you have any troubles, connect to me Monday through Friday at 7:30 p.m. and I'll help you interactively, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to stop recording here.